Hi, my name is Anthony Redeveld, and I'm a senior DDI engineer. Not only do I have a dozen or so BlueCat certificates, but I also work for BlueCat as an enterprise support engineer, professional services, and a solutions architect. I also have a handful of certificates with Infoblox and a few other DDI related certs under my belt. So thanks for joining my YouTube video. And I'm going to start off with showing you guys how to install BlueCat Address Manager 9.4. This on my machine, I have VMware Workstation 16 Pro. You can use whatever hypervisor you like that you're familiar with, but I will show you how to install it on this hypervisor, um, just so you have some idea on how to install the ISO or OVA, whatever the vendor has provided you. So we'll start off with creating the new virtual machine. I'm going to hit next. This is 16.2. Next. I'm going to select installer disk image ISO, browse. The ISO file I have is bam underscore installer underscore 9.4.0-674.ga. Next, I'm going to, the guest operating system is Linux and the version is Ubuntu. Next, and give it a name, BAM2. Next, this is a lab environment, so one core is perfectly fine. Next, 4 gigs of RAM is good enough. Next, NAT. Next, LSI logic, it's recommended. SCSI controller. Next, SCSI recommended. Next, create a new virtual disk. Next. If you look at the release notes for the BlueCat Address Manager 9.4, the minimum requirements are 360 gigs. You can always confirm that by looking at the release notes. I'm going to select store virtual disk as a single file. You don't have to. I will. Next. Next. And then here's a summary of what we set. So I've already done this, as you can see on the left-hand side at the top where it says BAM. I was just going to show, this is the purpose here is just to kind of show you how to install it and what options to select. The most important pieces are the hard disk, minimum requirements for that. If it's less than a certain amount, it won't even allow you to install it. Memory, it's not really that important unless this is production. And then if it's production and you restore the database on it, you want to install it based on the license. So if it's if you have a license for a BAM 6000, for example, the memory requirements that you're allowed are between 16 and 32 gigs. Hard disk, you want to set it to the requirement, which is 360 gigs. Okay, normally I would hit finish, but I'm going to cancel it because I've already set it up. So hit cancel, and then when you're ready, you can start it up here. Now, once it's started, when you start for the first time, there's only going to be one prompt, which is install BlueCat Address Manager or install Proteus, and then you would just hit enter, and then it would go through the installation steps. And then once it's completed, it will reboot. After it's rebooted, it'll take you to this screen. And this is where we're going to continue. So what I want to do here, now that I've installed the ISO, installed BlueCat Address Manager 9.4, what I need to do, what I want to do is, or what I need to do is I need to apply the license for BlueCat Address Manager. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the network interface, set the IP address. The IP address will be used for multiple purposes, but the main purpose is that I can access the GUI. And then the last step is after I've set the interface, I need to set the gateway, and it has to be in that order. And once I set the gateway, that's the minimum requirements to access the GUI from your browser and start playing with it. And this is what this video is for. So I'm going to start off with the login. Now, because I use an ISO, the default username and password is going to be root. If this is an OVA file that you're using, the password is different. The password will be D as in David 8, E as in Edward 8, F as in Frank, C as in Charlie, A as an apple. Okay. So once I've logged in as root, what I need to do to configure the license, the interface, and the gateway, I need to log in as admin. And to do that, I'm going to type in SU space ADMIN, admin, and then I'm going to hit enter. Okay. And it says Proteus CLI. Just a quick note, Proteus is an old name for the BAM. Now it's called Address Manager or BlueCat Address Manager, BAM. And these days, it's referenced as integrity. Okay, so in Proteus, what you'll notice if I hit the tab, you'll notice that I see a few options here. I see configure, exit, help, history, power off, reboot, show. What I want to do is type in configure, and then if I hit tab again, I'll see what options I have available. So again, the first thing I want to do is go to license or configure the license. So I type in license, tab, it'll fill in the rest for me. I don't have to enter the entire word license, and then enter. And then if I hit tab again, I'll have my options. What you want to do is type in update. Update is specifically for updating and or applying a new license to your BAM if you haven't done so already. Now, in this case, I already have, but I'll show you as far as I'll go without being able to show you the actual license key. Don't want to share that. So once I hit update, I'll hit tab again, and you'll have two options here. You have interactively or client ID. Always select interactively. Okay, and then once I hit enter, you'll be prompted to enter the license information. Okay, so I'm going to skip that for now. And if I want to go back, I type in exit. So that takes me back. So the next step after you apply the license is, again, you want to configure the interface. So configure interface, enter, tab. I'm going to type in, now the interface has already been configured. So if I type in show, I can see what I currently have, and this is what I want to set it to. But I'd like to show you one little gotcha, because you might have this problem. So I'm going to pretend like the address has not been added already. And if I type in modify and I hit tab, automatically I'm going to get ETH0. That is the interface I want to use. I'm going to hit enter. If I hit tab again, I'm going to have the options. I'm going to have add. I'm going to hit remove, reset, show, but this time I'm going to type in set, tab. Okay, and then I'm going to enter address. So it's going to be set address space the IP address, which is going to be 192.168.245.3. Now, if I hit enter right now, I'm going to get an error, and I'll show you why. So I get a syntax error, illegal parameter. Now, I mean, that is proper formatted IP address, but what I need to enter in addition to the IP address is a /24 or whatever you have this configured as. But in this case, this is a 255.255.255.0. So I'm going to put a /24. So once I do that and I hit enter, I get a more the syntax error is gone, and it says the address already exists. Perfect. If it said it was added, then the next thing I would want to do is enter the word save. So I save the configuration. Okay. It says no one saved changes for this interface because I haven't technically changed anything, but that's what you would do if you're entering if you're setting an IP address for that interface for the first time. Okay, so again, if I want to go back, I'm going to type in the word exit, enter. Okay, and then as you can see here, colon interface, I want to go back to configure. So I'm going to type in exit once again, enter. And if I type in configure, tab, the next step is I need to set the gateway. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in configure and then network. Enter, tab. Okay, so I could add, remove, reset, same options. I'm going to type in set. I hit tab and automatically it says default dash gateway. So the gateway is going to be 192.168.245.2. That's all you need to enter, and then hit the enter key. Gateway already exists. If I type in show, I can see that. Assuming I didn't already add the gateway, I would type in, it would say it was added, and then I would type in the word save. Done. Okay, again, I want to go back to the configure option. So I'm going to go back. So I'm going to type in exit. So technically you're pretty much done. You don't need DNS settings, name server settings configured in the BAM as of right now. You will need those based on certain additional settings that you can configure in the BAM and certain options that are configured after you stood up the BAM, BlueCat Address Manager. But what I'll show you how to set up the DNS settings, but it's not necessary. So again, I'm going to type in configure, and I'm going to type in name server. And actually, before I even show you name server, there's other options that you'd probably want to configure. So there's users. You can set up the users, firewall settings, mail settings, system settings, and system time. For example, system time, you need to make sure that's set up properly as well. And you only need to do that in a production environment. Again, a non-prod environment, it's not a requirement, but in a production environment, of course, you want to set up the system time and make sure that system time, that time zone, and how you've configured it is the same as how you configured the DNS and DHCP servers that the BlueCat Address Manager manages. Time has to be synced in terms of NTP. So for now, I'll just show you how to set the name server settings. Again, this piece you can skip, but it's good to know. So configure name server, tab, enter, tab again, and I have multiple options. If I type in show, I have one address already that I added, but I could add more. So if I tab, I could hit add, tab. I have three options. I can add an address, a domain name, or a search domain. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another address, IP address specifically, and I'll enter 8.8.8.8, which is Google. Enter. Okay, I've added it. Type in save. It's saved. I type in show. I can see I have two name servers configured and added. Okay, so I'm done. So I'm going to go back, exit, and then exit again. Okay, and now I can switch over to my browser. So I'll bring that over here. I'll minimize this. So now that I've set the interface, let's see if I can access the GUI for my browser. So 192.168.245.3. Perfect. Okay, as you can see, I have the BlueCat Address Manager open. It's asking me for a username and password. So before you configure, before you set up usernames and or LDAP in your BAM, what you can do, to log in to the address manager for the first time, the default username and password is admin. Okay, so if I type in admin and then admin again, log in, I'm logged into the BlueCat Address Manager. Awesome. So we can see here that this is 9.4, as I mentioned earlier. We are under the My IPAM tab. You'll notice that these other tabs are not available currently other than groups and administration. So what you want to do before you can access the IP space DNS tab and all these other tabs, you need to set a configuration. Currently, there is no configuration. So I'm going to go to administration. I'm going to go to configuration. I'm going to hit the plus sign, new, and I'm going to call it, it doesn't matter what you call it, default config. You can give it a description, configuration group if you like, but I'm just going to give it a name and hit add. Once you add the configuration, all the other tabs will be available. I should have said once it's done loading, it'll be available. All right, so we have the default config. If I go back to my iPad tab, I can see it says default config. You can, and in future videos, I will show you how you can have multiple configurations and why that's and how you would use those different configurations. But for now, we are now able to access the IP space, DNS tab, and every other tab that wasn't available earlier. So this is my video on installing BlueCat Address Manager 9.4 and standing it up so you can access the GUI. In future videos, I'll go through showcasing the different tabs, how they're used, and we'll go in more depth on configuring DNS and DHCP servers, security, and many more options, including the BAM replication, database replication, DHCP failover, XHA, automation, and so much more, including cloud integration and adding using APIs, as well as hosting the address manager and DNS services in the cloud, AWS, Azure, and GCP. Well, thank you for watching my video. Please share and subscribe.